Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Susi. I'm Director of Nursing at TLC. And this afternoon, we have the pleasure of being educated by one of our colleagues named Sharon McCarthy. Sharon is going to speak to us today about the concept of forgiveness, which is something we all need to have in mind. So Sharon, thank you for joining us, and we turn the floor to you.
Okay, thank you. How is everyone? It's beautiful today. The sun is shining. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of my history. My background is in recovery, both personally and professionally. I studied alcohol and drug addiction at Westfield State University in Massachusetts. After I graduated, I went into the field and worked as a counselor at a residential facility. Through my experience as a counselor, I was fortunate to see the impact that the process of forgiveness had on others' recovery. You can read along with me because I also have this here as far as the presentation. Forgiveness is really about letting go of resentment that is holding you hostage. How does one let go of feelings that are not serving us well? How does one have an emotional shift so that we can move on in life without carrying resentment? No one said life is easy, and it's not going to be. Sometimes we learn our lessons through adversity, through difficult people and difficult circumstances. We learn what not to do and what to do differently, and so do others with their interactions with us. We need to remember that we are all learning our lessons of life together. We are truly each other's teachers. None of us get out unscathed. It is the human condition. This is why we need some grounding in spirituality. If we can begin to see that everything, even on a daily basis, is part of a bigger picture for our spiritual growth, then things do not get us to a place of resentment. To remember that we make choices in life, and we all from time to time make wrong choices that were not in our best interest. We need to let go of the past, our history, our trauma. Understand that you did the best that you could for where you were at the particular time in life. Excuse me. And others did the best that they could for where they were at in life. Your parents did the best they could with what they knew at the time, where they had come from. And many of us and our parents were so young raising our children. What did we know? Think about it. We all had so much to learn about life. To let go of the guilt and shame, regardless of the situation, is to be kind to others. But more importantly, letting go is being kind to ourselves. Forgiveness is about moving on in life. No, it is not easy. It is sometimes extremely difficult to let go and forgive others, our past, our history, our circumstances. But when we process things with a spiritual eye in prayer or meditation, we can begin over time to let go of the anger and resentment because we understand it from a different perspective of compassion. That is what forgiveness is. We are absolutely each other's teachers. We are learning together what life is all about in our place in this universe. We need to connect with our understanding of God as our source. That is our purpose, to understand, to expand our spiritual awareness. On the opposite side of that, we may be able to let go and forgive, but what about others who will not forgive us or see us differently after we have changed? That is their choice. Do we want them in our lives right now anyway? Are they healthy for us if they are carrying resentment and anger? We need to let go of that as well and let it be. Some people are not centered enough to forgive us. They are walking their own walk. Perhaps they have not grown in their own spirituality. Everyone has their own path. We can only walk ours. It is a gift to ourselves to detach with compassion and forgiveness. Also remember, it takes time for others to trust us. See it for what it is realistically and understand without the guilt and blame. Yes, of course it hurts to have alienated those we love or loved. Yes, of course it hurts to have suffered physical, emotional, or verbal traumas and injustice at the hands of others or ourselves. There's always something to learn. However, we do heal in time. It is all part of our spiritual journey, the learning and the growing, the forgiving, the changing. And again, sometimes through the difficult times, these people and these circumstances, no matter how devastating, were our teachers and we were theirs. The lessons were learned, time for new beginnings, new relationships, new history. And remember, there's no shame in learning our lessons the way we had to learn them. No one has learned their lessons of life without challenges and heartache along the way. We've all made mistakes, some bigger mistakes than others. It is what it is. The important thing is that we are learning and we are beginning to get it. We are turning our lives around in a way that is productive. That is what matters today in this moment. I would like to share something that I read in an article by Colin Tipping. When you resolve to forgive someone, you choose to live in the present. Forgiving does not mean forgetting, but rather releasing the damaging emotions and moving towards an emotionally stable life. Forgiveness does not mean that you condone the actions of others. It is up to you to decide not to be controlled by your circumstances and to take the initiative to forgive those who do not know better. People tend to hurt others out of their own fear and pain. Forgiveness allows love to enter your life. By clinging to anger, you permit your ego to relive the wrongs of your past. Continually reliving past anguish in your mind and verbally describing your situation to others gives life to your sorrows. Empathy. For genuine forgiveness to happen, it is necessary to put yourself in the shoes of the offender. If you do not forgive, you will automatically respond out of your own pain and fears and will ultimately hurt others. Maintaining integrity. Forgiveness is not for the benefit of the person who wronged you. It is your key to happiness and emotional freedom. End of the article by Colin Tipping. Grief. Do not deny yourself the opportunity to grieve the losses in life. It's normal. We need to allow ourselves time to grieve the loss or transgression. There's a very real sadness in this. In order to forgive, there is a process over time. Compassion. Seeing through another person's eyes. Most people do not harm out of malice. They are usually either confused, sick, or in pain themselves. Empathy. The ability to feel what someone else is feeling. Resenting something or someone from the past keeps us stuck. Anger is a damaging emotion to self. So to be set free from harm to ourselves is to let go and forgive and come to a place of understanding. This leads us to acceptance and the ability to let go. Like anything else, forgiveness is a process and it takes time. We don't just flick a switch and have an aha moment. Settling in with awareness, compassion, acceptance, understanding, changing our thinking about it, how we look at it, and how it is perceived, to allow and open up the channels of seeing differently, not just from our head, but from our hearts. Steps to forgiveness. Allow yourself time to feel the sadness, grieving the loss, feeling true feelings. Facing and coming to terms with resentment and anger that is holding you hostage. Expressing your emotions about the past or situations to help release the emotional charge that is being held in your body, physically and psychically. Then we need to move on. Find a trusted support person through 12-step groups, counseling, clergy. Make amends wherever possible, if necessary. Not expecting anything back from others. Acceptance and letting go. Recovery and spiritual growth is a process. Be kind to yourself. Be patient with your journey. Have faith. Never give up hope. In closing, in the end, what matters most? How well did you love? How well did you live? How well did you let go? That's a favorite quote of mine. So summarizing steps to forgiveness. Pardon me, my phone. Summarizing steps to forgiveness. Forgiveness is letting go to make peace from the heart, not just the head. Compassion, seeing through the eyes of the offender. It does not mean the hurt goes away immediately, but we accept it and gradually integrate it into the present as part of our history, but it does not consume and control us. We do not hate or despise or wish ill will. We realize they are human and imperfect as we all are. We no longer strive to fix it. We expect nothing. We see from a different perspective, which brings about a shift in our thinking. This brings about a healing. We then can let it go. The dictionary description of forgiveness is to cease to feel resentment towards a person or situation, to pardon, to be merciful, to be kind. There is a worksheet here, and there's an optional exercise about imagery, and I've worked with people in this way many times. Write everything down that you want to let go of emotionally, and then have a mental image of it being thrown into a blazing fire. When you're ready, if you ever get to that place where you really need to have a ritual, about letting things go, see in your mind's eye the smoke rising into the sky until it disappears. With your own words and your own prayer, let it go. So you're doing something, emotionally and physically as well, to try to process, your feelings. There's also a poem here, Be Who You Must Be, and you can read that in your own time. Also, I did print out, if anyone cares to go to, on the computer, Wikipedia has what forgiveness means in all the different religions. And the whole message from all of the different religions is that forgiveness is really a state of mind. And it's a state of mind, first, you're processing it and working it through emotionally, but then it's from your heart. Once you have that understanding of letting, of looking inside the other person, seeing from the other person's, stepping in their shoes, and you do get to that place, it comes from the heart, and that's when you can really move on in life. Excuse me. So, I think that's about it. Does anyone have anything they'd like to offer? Or anything they'd like to share?
I think that when you talk about compassion,
Mm-hmm.
accepting yourself and your own,
Got to speak up a little bit, Rose.
about accepting your own imperfections, being compassionate towards yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't love yourself and accept your own imperfections, then it's really difficult to be compassionate towards other people.
Exactly. We really have to be kind to ourselves in order to move forward. And then that puts us in a position to be able to forgive others, because none of us are perfect.
What's your thoughts about seeking friends who may be trustworthy as opposed to only 12-step members or professional counselor or clergy? Because you didn't mention that at all in those groups.
Oh, absolutely.
Among those groups,
Yeah.
they
Friends are
weren't part of that. Because there are people I know in my life that I could probably talk to about anything and know that they're gonna keep it confidential and that they will just let me ventilate without criticism or without, any put down, if you will.
I think it's very important to have a trusted support person, however we do that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be through 12-step or
Yeah.
through church or through clergy or whatever. I mention that because often when people are on a spiritual quest, that's where they start. For me, it's not either or, it's in addition to. So,
Okay, good.
as I've grown in my own spirituality, kind of, all those things are like way years ago.
Mhm.
I'm at a different place in my life now, as understanding God and the universe and life and all of those things. So, but a lot of people, find a lot of strength in church or clergy or whatever, or
Mhm.
12-step programs. But I think that's all part of our journey, and it's all a process.
Well, they're all building
Takes
blocks, I
years.
think, in the process of healing.
Mhm.
Because what you just said is really true. Most of us take a long time to come to the place where we can totally say that we have forgiven all who have harmed us or we have asked for forgiveness. Because that's a different step also. That is part of forgiving oneself, is getting to the place where one can go and say to Sharon, Sharon, I really hurt you the other day when I said something like this to you, and I want you to know I really have thought about it and I'm very sorry that I did it. Now Sharon can say to me, blow it off, mister, I'm never gonna forgive you for what you said to me, that was too much of an insult. Or you might say very genuinely, I accept your apology. And I can walk away from that feeling one way or another.
Well, I think I touched on that. A lot of people aren't in a position to, they haven't grown in their own life and in their own spirituality, so they may not forgive us. and they may not
Right.
accept our amends.
Right.
So that's why I said, I think we have to let that be and let that go too. And sometimes people aren't healthy for us to be in our life. If they're angry and they're resentful, they're not healthy. A lot of the Eastern religions and Eastern philosophies say that the reason for forgiveness is because if you hold resentment and you hold anger towards anyone or anything, you are creating around you negative energy that's going to follow you and stay with you. And so therefore, it's very hard for us to make strides in our life if that negative energy is with us all the time.
Poison analogy, it's like drinking poison, expecting the other
Absolutely.
person to die.
Yes. So it's very healthy. So that's why we say when we forgive, we're really being kind to ourselves first. It's not really for the other person. It's for ourselves. And it is also for the other person to be kind and to release them. But releasing those feelings in ourselves is very important.
It does take a spiritually mature person to forgive someone fully and not hold any type of resentment. And I know Christianity teaches that when God forgives us, He forgives us totally. He throws all of our shortcomings far away from Him, and they are never to be brought back into His presence again. And with that said, that's only because He's able to totally forgive us without any resentment. Humans, on the other hand, have a little more challenge when it comes to that type of behavior. Because I have had people say to me, I forgive you, but then 3 months later or 6 months later, I get a stab in the back, or I get some type of a reference in a conversation about something I did 6 months ago.
So consequently, they haven't really forgiven you from their heart.
Exactly.
And forgiveness is a process. It does not happen overnight. It's a real process.
Now, with that said, do you think we can take the seed that they offered us and ourselves bring that forward, even though they may have not given us totally the forgiveness?
Bring that forward.
Yes.
Explain a little.
What I mean by that is, if I go to you and you say you forgive me, but in the deepness of your heart, you have not really forgiven me.
But I think you've planted the seed.
Well, I planted a seed in you, but for me to walk away from you after having heard you say to me, Alan, I forgive you. If I believe you, if I really believe that you have forgiven me, even though maybe you haven't, and I go away from you and I proceed with my life, assuming you have forgiven me, that's going to move me forward in a positive way, even though deep down inside maybe you haven't actually forgiven me.
But that's why I don't think it's healthy to be around people who can't let go.
Right.
If they're not
Right.
accepting our...
Right. So I would need to stay away from you
Yeah.
because
I agree.
Yeah, I would need to stay
I don't
away.
think that's healthy. I think sometimes we need to let people go.
Yeah, we do.
Or just let them be.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we have to close the door, and I think I've
Yeah.
said this before
Yeah.
in other presentations too. We don't need to shut the door completely, but I think we need to step aside and not try to keep fixing it, because they're not ready, and they have their own journey. And that's how we get so messed up in life. We keep trying to have relationships and do things with people that are just not there, and they're not healthy. So, and that's not easy when it's family.
Right, that makes it even harder, that's true, because
Yeah.
you can't always
I mean,
get out of their way.
The biggest challenge of my life is a
Yeah.
family member, and probably why I've learned what I've learned in many ways over 30 years. But God love them, I mean, it's just, but yeah, I don't think it's, and then there are other people that I have had to let be and walk away. Doesn't mean I've closed the door. I'm there if they're willing at some point in their life, but I just can't interact with the unhealthy, negative thing going on all the time.
I have a family member that way,
Mm.
and I always, big hug, and finally it's like, oh, he was saying, oh my God, Alan, he doesn't treat me decent, and oh my God, I'm family, and it's like, you're always family to me, Rose, no problem. and then he takes it as a challenge, like, screw it, let's see.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
And
happens
it's like,
sometimes.
no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't answer the telephone when the area code is 208.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And when I have company that's supposed to stay 2 weeks and they stay 8,
Mm.
I ask TLC for extra work.
good for you, because
I
you
just-
found ways to deal with it.
What's the saying? Something about it, they stay a little bit longer than they're supposed to, they stink like fish. Bad fish,
They stink like
they
fish
stink like bad fish.
if they stay a little longer than
I've
they're
never
supposed to.
heard
That's
that.
interesting. I
That's
never
a
heard
good
that.
one.
That
That's
is.
Stella's, yeah, this is, they stay here.
Well, it is interesting. Life is definitely, it keeps throwing us these challenges.
I
And
just
these-
see him as like throwing paper clips into a fan. Oh God, that felt so good, I'm gonna do it again. You know, it's just like, no. That's it. That's my, he'll never change. He's,
But you've accepted that.
yeah, I don't have anything to do with him. Yeah.
Okay. So that's healthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's very healthy. And you touched on something. Some people can use that when we're kind and we try to,
Yes.
you know, make amends and we try to make it right and our heart breaks, you know, because we can't fix that relationship. But manipulation, you know, when people are not well themselves and they're not centered and they're not healthy or have a spiritual awareness, they manipulate.
Yes.
And that is not, you know, all that is all part of recovery. All of those things, recognizing those things and moving beyond them. But as I said in the beginning in my introduction, when I was a counselor, I had the experience and I was very privileged to watch people go through the process of forgiveness in their life and how it impacted their recovery, how it set them free. And how often they didn't, you know, if they were trying to make amends and reach out to family members or loved ones or friends or whatever that they had harmed, and that person wasn't willing to accept that person wasn't willing to forgive them. We have to remember, they're either sick, they're not well, they have their own emotional problems, they're not spiritually centered. There's a lot of reasons why people respond and act the way they do. And also, too, I think we need to remember, most people don't hurt out of malice. They are just not in a good place themselves. They don't intentionally want to harm us, not generally.
He'll go, look at that fat bitch over there.
Mm,
Loud enough in a restaurant that it can be heard by them.
okay, well, he's not well.
Mm.
He's definitely not well, and he's not in a good place, and also, he has very low self-esteem.
Yeah, if he's got to make those kinds of
If he's
statements,
going
yes.
to put someone else down
Yeah.
and criticize someone else or hurt someone, his his self-esteem is like way, which is his way of controlling his life.
Imagine what he's saying to himself, imagine what his internal dialogue is.
Exactly.
Constantly,
So-
what the messages in his head are constantly saying to him that he's not worthy.
Exactly, which is where the compassion comes from. When someone is acting like that, we know they are really hurting. And they're hurting so much that they want to hurt others, you know? Just not
Yes.
in a good place. So, and part of that is emotionally imbalanced often, so.
Have any of you in the room had the experience of living with an angry person? At any time? Just think
Yes.
about, okay.
Absolutely.
Assuming you all have at some point or another. I have too. Why I asked my lead-in question is because I believe the absence of self-forgiveness and/or the absence of forgiveness in general contributes to the anger that people express in their interactions with others. And going back to the presentation you did a couple months ago, Sharon, actually it was last month, on
PTSD.
on PTSD, I believe that one of the fundamental stimuluses of that disorder, of the stress disorder, is the inability of the person who's experiencing it to forgive him or herself for whatever they might have been involved in particular in crisis situations, but even in life in general. You know, when you live with an alcoholic, for example, or you live with a drug addict in your life every day, sooner or later, you're gonna get mad at that person. And sooner or later, you're going to have struggle with forgiving that person over and over and over
Yeah.
again
I get
when they
that.
don't change.
I
They
get
just
that.
keep going forward in the mess. And you're stuck in the mess with them maybe because you don't know how to get out. And you get angry at them because you have forgiven them so many times that you lose your ability to forgive.
It's not possible to stay totally,
You can't.
it's not possible when we're living around that for us to be balanced ourselves.
It's impossible. You're absolutely
And
right.
so that's why I was saying in my last presentation that when you're living with madness, you become,
Mad.
when you're living with craziness, you become crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's the same thing with anger. If you're around a very angry person, it's very poisonous. And often, one of the things that I've realized is that the person that is very angry and, you know, spewing out all this nonsense all the time, often there's transference.
Yes.
They'll be saying to you, you're dysfunctional, you did this, you did that, when in fact, they know they're the ones that are, but it's in the recesses of their mind. It's not like, they're not cognizant of the fact that they're the ones being very dysfunctional. So they transfer what their feelings are onto you. And they think you're the offender. That truly happens, and it's very, very sad when it happens with someone that you love. Because there is no, we do have to let them go and let them find their own way and, you know, but be as open as we can to helping them in the ways that we can. And I think I mentioned that last time too as well, that sometimes we need to remove ourselves from the situation and know they can't live with us and that kind of thing. So we have to do what we can for them if we're a parent and, you know, they happen to be a grown adult. It's very sad, definitely. And there's nothing we can do if people don't want to get their own recovery and their own healing, right? So
Yeah.
we have to take care of ourselves, otherwise it will destroy us.
True.
And then, like you say, you can't, it's not possible not to get angry. But then, much quicker, I think we get out of that. And that's what happens, that's why we're so forgiving. Over and over, we keep trying to make it okay and try to fix it. But there comes a time where we have to say, okay, you know, he's on his own journey.
I think the absence of forgiveness also causes us to suffer a lot of physical illness, secondary to the stress that we're under because of the lack of forgiveness or the feeling of not being forgiven.
Because what is disease? Disease is dis-ease. And when we're around all that stress and that anger and that resentment, we're in dis-ease. So that's where, you know, a lot of these diseases come from. Physically, it definitely impacts us, for sure. Yeah. Is anything else? Anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I think that this could be really helpful when we deal with our clients in the home and we have clients that are angry or we can't please them. And we try so hard to give them what they want, when in fact, they maybe don't know what they want. They're acting out and they're telling us, you know, you don't do anything right for me. You come in here, you don't know what you're doing. Everything's wrong that you're doing. And, you know, using that compassion and forgiveness, looking at them and saying, you know, what's the dialogue in their head? What's their life story? That it's maybe just sitting down and saying, you look upset today. Is there anything other than, you know, the cereal I just put in the bowl for you that's upsetting you? Just opening that door to people and giving them permission to tell you something and holding that for them, maybe that's something they've never had.
Maybe that is something they've never had, and they are used to fighting, and they've gotten into that mode. And so detachment is really important too, you know, but it's not easy being an LNA or a PCA or, you know, being a caregiver. It's certainly a difficult job. And the more tools that we can use to, you know, handle those situations with clients.
One of the things I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the things that I have become more fully aware of than I was even when I worked in institutions is the home care setting for a caregiver whether it be a nurse or a caregiver or an LNA, is like being on an island. You're all by yourself. You don't have a colleague you can go talk to. You don't have somebody else there besides the client that you can find release with, or you can get support from. So, I guess I'm saying this out loud because I think we all need to think about where can we get that when we're there on that island? What can we do? What have some of you done?
I think perhaps the helpline would be nice.
Well,
You know, being able to call someone and say, you know, this is what's happening, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Truly. You know,
and,
in the moment, I mean, I remember
Yeah.
way back when, you know, 12-step programs, okay, dealing with a difficult family member, getting on the phone and saying, you know, this is what's happening, and I'm ready to just jump out of my skin, and I need someone to talk about this with me, talk it through with me, otherwise I'm gonna run it through my head without, and then I would get some feedback, you know, and then by the time I got off the phone, I felt better, and then I did that also as a person that was sponsoring other
you were
people.
responding to the people calling, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Eventually,
I-
you got to the place where you could be the responder?
Right, I was,
Yeah.
yes, but initially I was the one calling.
Yeah.
You know, I was the one needing that support, because, you know, in my head, I was ready to just, what do I do about this? And then that's when you lash out, and that's when things go
Yeah.
south. So it's good to have someone, but also just, like you were saying, Rose, just recognizing that that person is not well and they're not in a good place, and they probably never had anyone who understood them and was compassionate with them. They always fought through their life. You know, a lot of times it's dementia. They don't know what they're doing anyway.
Or they're sick.
Or they're sick.
Or you just say, wow, it really sucks to be sick. And they're like,
Exactly.
yes, they start to tell you, and that's, there's the door.
Because that's validation. A lot of people just need to be validated,
Mhm.
you know. But it isn't easy.
And again, that brings me back to the point that one of the tools that this organization, TLC, has put in place is 24-hour on-call. That means that a caregiver is not ever totally alone.
So you do have that support system in
Yes.
place.
And
if
that's
it's
why I
necessary.
want to stress it, because I want anyone who hears this message to realize that you can call TLC and say, you know, I'm going batty right now. I need to talk to somebody right now. You don't just call if if the circumstance has already occurred and you're just calling in a report. You need to do that, but you can also call and say, you know, I have to talk to a nurse right now. I have to talk to somebody right now to give me some strength to get through what I'm going through right now. And some of you have done that. I know some people have called me and talked to me about their feelings and whatever they were struggling with a particular client. And that has helped them to get through it. Or they'll call me up and they'll say, when I get off duty, I need to talk to you right away.
Yeah.
And they'll come and talk to me.
And not small things, but things that are really, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of like getting to the crisis mode.
Yes, where they're on the verge of deciding to run away from the whole situation, or
Right.
they're about ready to blow up at the client when they know that's not the professional thing to do, and they're fighting every moment to hold it back because if they explode, they're going to explode like a volcano.
I've stopped in after a shift to see Alan a couple times.
Yeah. You have, and that's been good for both of us, because it helps me to stay informed about what the needs are among the staff, and it gave you a place to just come and ventilate. I don't have the answers necessarily, and you don't come expecting an answer. Most of the time, you just want to talk to me. And I think that's true for any of us. Any person who's in the case management role, or any person who is sharing the responsibility of a case, even caregiver to caregiver. You know, if there's more than one person working in a case with you, it's okay to have dialogue with each other and say, what was it like for you yesterday? You know, tell me how it went, because the last time I was here, this is what I experienced. And a lot of times you end up sharing really important information with each other. That also has a lot to do with getting forgiveness about how you feel at that moment. Getting validated, like Sharon said to us. You know, it's important to know that what you're saying is okay to say.
I have a comment on that.
Yeah, please do, Rose.
When the girl that's taken over for the one that left, the caregiver that left
Yeah,
is from a different company.
Yeah.
And she really has not got the hang of anything over there yet, where I work. And she came outside one day when I was ready to leave, and she says, "They have put you on such a high pedestal." She says, "I can't reach it. I can't make it." I says, I looked at her, I said, "You gotta be kidding me. Don't treat me like that, you know."
Isn't
This
that
is-
good to hear though?
But she
It
was
is,
giving you a
it
compliment.
was very good to hear. I
Yeah.
said, I couldn't believe it. I
Yeah.
says, I said to her, "That's not the way they act. I need to."
well, that's the thing, your perception was different than what she was telling you.
Because it laid guilt.
She always says,
It was a compliment, kind of, but
how
way
can
it's
you do
processed.
this for 4 days? She says, "I can't even do this for 3 days. I'm gonna get done." I says, "Well, lovely." You know? I says, "You know what? I do it because it's my job." That's what I said to her.
Mhm.
She doesn't feel like she has a job there. I think she wants to control the whole thing. That's the thing. And
Ah.
she cannot do that.
Interesting point you just made.
She cannot do that because there is control in that place.
There is.
It's all her control.
who's this,
The client,
that
the
you're taking
client,
care of?
yeah.
Okay.
He has no, the husband of that client, of that person has no comprehension how to fix any of this, and so he never makes a comment, and that really makes the other one mad. But
Some people often have trouble, I think, working as a team as well. They want to be the only, you know what I'm saying? It can be very humbling to get to a place in our life where we are really appreciative
Yeah.
of other people and interacting with other people, and, you know, it's okay, it's great, actually.
Well,
But
when,
there are times, and there are people who don't want to work as a team, and so that's difficult.
there's an awful lot of people who want to either have it all themselves or not work
Mhm.
when they're there, you know. And-
You and I shared Amy.
Yeah,
I'm coming off the shift and she's coming on. We spend 10 minutes sitting there talking, you know, like, geez, you know, this happened. She was pretty responsive. We walked the halls.
Well, that's great. Rapport is very important.
yes, we have to report, I have to report to the girl what's happened, and she's supposed to report to me when I get there what's happened, and I don't know, it's not,
She doesn't report what's
she
going
does, but it's just not, the stuff that she does is not proper for the house she's in. She thinks she's in a nursing home, I guess, instead of a private home.
You know, and that is something that is a challenge for, when someone has not worked for any length of time in home setting,
Right.
it's very different than an institutional setting, very
Yeah.
different.
And that one's extremely different than any of them that I've ever been in. Maybe one other lady, but still. I still
Well-
get a Christmas card from that one, so I don't know.
You know, again, bring up another really interesting notion, and that is, how do we forgive as professionals the people we're taking care of when they offend us? What do we do about that? Let's talk about that for a minute. What kind of forgiveness is there? What are we supposed to do in that case?
Well, I think detachment is very important. But
So-
how does one do that? So you want to share how you've done that in the past?
Yeah, my lady in Shelburne. She was at the Arbors, and they did everything for her. And now she's home, and she wants to stay home. And I was there, she had an episode where she kind of died, and then she came back.
Okay.
And I just stood there with her. And then I was helping her dress and this and that. And then it came a point where, Marcia, how am I going to stay well if you keep doing that?
Oh, because she wants to do things herself.
But
she felt like you were helping her too much?
yes,
Yeah, that's a big issue on the elderly. They want to be independent, and losing their independence is just devastating to them.
and coming back, she wants to come back. And it's
Yeah.
like, I wish you would stop smoking. Okay, I don't smoke.
Well, maybe one of the other caregivers does, and she's not, she's
Maybe she's not
confused.
comfortable saying, Rose, stop smoking cigars.
She's confused, perhaps.
How about others? Have any of the rest of you experienced situations where you had to really think about whether you could forgive or not in terms of how you may have been treated by a client?
I end up being treated very badly by her most of the time, at least once a weekend, or once in the 4 days that I'm there. And what it all comes down to is that what she wants is she wants me to say that I'm wrong about whatever it is she thinks I'm wrong about and apologize to her. So that's what I have to do in order to bring the calm down. Sometimes I even say to her when she starts into some tangent that I've heard before, I'll say, all right, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll say right to her, I said, all right, calm down. Never mind, I said, you know. It's
But again, that may be a situation like we were talking about before, where they're using transference, not aware that they're
Oh,
using transference. They're-
she has a bad time with him a lot of times. And she comes to me and starts talking to me about the way he treats her. I can't do anything about that. I mean, it's not my place. And I listen to her and I say, yeah, okay, well, I've seen it, you know, I have, but. And then you have him who has the major problem because he doesn't understand it, he can't see anymore hardly, and he can't do anything about it. But anything that has financial things to do with anything, he goes off on a major tangent. And she's always telling him, you know, well, if you don't trust me enough to have me do this, get somebody else, hire somebody else and have them come in here and do it.
They've probably been arguing about that for 50 years.
Oh, yeah, and she's always threatening
That
him,
has been
you don't
here.
have to be here, we're gonna make changes, you know, you can go to a nursing home.
You know,
Jesus.
yeah.
I'm saying, why just send her to a nursing home?
It's
You know?
very sad.
Get her away from me. It
lot
would
of
be
people
fine
abuse
if
each
she
other.
wasn't there, but yet, if she's not there, for 5 seconds, where he can see her, he says, where is she?
That's their dynamic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their.
Where is she?
That is
They're
their-
totally
yes.
dependent on each other.
Well, the same with my lady in Shelburne. Okay, I don't get her pants, and I don't get her socks or put them on. Are you mad at me today?
You can't
Yes,
just
you-
get them out for her, lay them there and let her do her own?
Or
You
just
can't.
stand by her side and let her do as much as she can, and then say, you know, I'm here.
I do. It's like, I'm letting you do it because you asked me to let you do it. If you need help, just ask.
But
They don't like
probably
to.
if you stand by her side while she's doing that, she'll feel like you care. But if you go somewhere else while she's doing it, she's not used to that because you were so hands-on with her before. So maybe kind of weaning a little bit, you know, a little more where she can see you.
And then she sends me
Initially.
out and she says, you know, I'm fine. I took a shower without you. I'll tell you what, why don't you start the breakfast? Well, I can't do that. I set the table or whatever
Why can't you start the breakfast?
because the eggs will be cold by the time she gets out.
Ah,
You never want to rush her.
oh, okay.
That's a big
Mhm. Yes, okay.
This
Well,
one-
you know the routines.
This one goes to me,
Not anymore.
you know,
I've given her up.
I do the best I can to watch him while he's doing something that, you know, he washes his face 2 times or 3 times at night and the morning. And I have a little break in not watching him because he's sitting down and he's washing his face. And I say to her, can I help you put this on? Can I help you do this? Can I do this for you? No, I can get it. And then she'll go off on a tangent and say, well, I never get any help. He gets all the help. He gets massaged. He gets rubbed. He gets all this put on him, but I don't get anything.
Does
like
that sound like resentment?
Yeah,
Doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I've given her back rubs with powder. I've done her feet with lotion, and
You don't
Rose,
care.
you
I'm
just
gonna
gotta
say-
you
I'm
just
gonna-
gotta hit it right with her as to whether or not you can help her. But you're not there to help her, and she doesn't understand that situation.
Well, I'm going to say this about that. Your willingness to love her the way you do, by the kindness of your heart, giving to her things that you know she's not supposed to get, and that oftentimes she doesn't respond to in a positive way because she uses it against you later. The fact that you still do it is clearly because of the loving person you are. All right, and that's really important for you to keep in mind, because Sharon says it well here in this statement. I want to read this because I knew I could find it. It says here, it's up to you to decide not to be controlled by your circumstances, and to take the initiative to forgive those who do not know any better.
You must be almost a saint, girl. Up there on that pedestal, how's the air?
This is what, my second year there,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
October it'd be 3,
Oh my God.
So, you know, again,
and I only had one breakdown so far that I was ready to, I took all my stuff out of there and I came over here and I said.
you did, and yet you're still there.
Took 'em in.
How
I
did-
know, because I couldn't stand it to have somebody in there that didn't know what it's like, and I couldn't tell them.
So you were protecting an incoming caregiver whom you didn't even know, and you did that, why?
That's our trade, isn't it?
Tell me why, because why you did it. Why did you do it?
Because I wanted them to be sane. I wanted them to be able to take care of these people the way that they need to be taken care of.
Yes.
And
And you knew you were capable of taking care of them the way they needed to be taken
Yes.
care of in addition, which is why you decided to stay.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and I just wish that she would tell me, I have you way up here, you're.
Yeah.
Actually, imagine if we took that energy, half the energy, a quarter of the energy that we extend out to everybody else and turned it around and focused it on ourselves and actually cared for ourselves.
There you go.
What we could do in our lives
Yeah,
as caregivers, because
Yeah.
we should be doing it for ourselves first. We should be taking
should.
care of ourselves first.
and we don't often,
No.
and until we get to a place in our life where we
Yeah.
probably have a crisis or something, and then we say, okay, things have to change here.
Well,
It's a learning curve.
I had these people 4 days, and then I have an aunt that lives up near me who needs to go here and go there and this and that and another thing on the day that I have off, and then of course I have a mother who's, somewhere in between there, so it's like you don't ever get any time to yourself. You never get a day off, really. It's strange, but it is.
But if we don't give ourselves time for
We
ourselves.
get very sick.
Well, if we don't give ourselves time to be introspective and to be still with ourselves, we will get sick. So it's very important to have that time, like you were saying, and
I want to interrupt and offer this thought because it's related to what Rose just said and what you're saying now. I have learned for myself that when I can't give myself permission to take care of Alan, I need to go find somebody who can give me the permission to take care of Alan. That's important to remember.
how do you do that?
I go find somebody I can talk to who's going to, like you, I might go to Sharon and say, Sharon, this is where I am. I'll spill my guts to you, and then I'll basically tell you, I can't give myself permission to let go of this. And you might just say to me, it's okay for you to let go of this.
And that's all you need.
And that's all I need is somebody else to just boost me by saying, it's okay to do this, Alan. Reassure me that I don't need to hang on to it. Because sometimes we are, again, so isolated. We're so much on that island by ourselves, and we try to rely on our own strength to make everything happen, and we can't. There's no way that we can. I have the same kind of situation in some respects, Rose. I have a mother who is 90 years old. She's a very independent woman. She still lives in her own home, but she's beginning to decline, and there are many days when she calls me up after I get out of work. I work a 10-hour day. She calls me up, will you come down?
Come fix this blind.
Well, or will you just come down? Will you just come? I'd like to see you. Will you come? I haven't seen you in 2 days. Would you please come down? So I drive down. I don't want to necessarily go down. I want to go home and sit down and do nothing. But my mother's asking, so I go.
How far is she?
Well, she's just across town, but it's 20 minutes from my house
And
to
you
drive
stay.
there, and then I stay for a couple hours, and then I drive back home. And so I relate, or on a Saturday when I want to just be home, taking care of stuff at home or taking care of Alan, I'll get a call at 7:30 in the morning. Oh, it's such a sunny, beautiful day. Do you want to take a ride and go here, there, or the other place? And, I want to say, no, Mom, I don't want to
I
go.
know, but how do you do that?
But how do you do that?
Exactly.
You don't. You don't.
You don't have brothers or sisters in the
I
area?
I have two sisters.
And do they help?
One of them is on the Cape, and the other one lives in Essex. She spends almost as much time with my mother as I do. We sort of have worked out an arrangement of sharing different things about my mother's life, that I do things with her and my
Does your
other
mother have any friends?
sisters. Oh, my mother has a social life that is better than mine. She goes
They
to,
could take her out.
my mother goes to theater. She goes to,
So she's
she
able
goes to a
get her-
Pie of the Month club. She's a member of the Doll Club.
I wanna hang out.
Okay, my mother is a very active woman. She's
And
extremely
she loves you,
active.
Alan.
And she loves me, yes, of
dresses
course.
to the nine.
It's true, she does.
Oh my God, she's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, she does. And it's all, for all of those reasons that I don't act with resentment about giving her my time. But I was empathizing with the fact that I understand what it's like when you work hard all week long, and then you think, oh man, I'm gonna have a little bit of time to myself, even if it's just to sit down and read a book. And then you don't get it, because something else comes your way, or somebody calls you and a friend calls you up and says, I'm really in the hurts right now, I need to talk to somebody.
Well,
Well, I don't have any of them, so I don't have to worry about that.
I think it's very hard to deal with someone who's very needy,
Yes,
and
Yeah.
whether or not they love you,
right.
or you love them.
It's very true.
It's very, very difficult to deal with someone who's needy. Can I read this poem?
Yes, please.
It's what we,
Yeah.
like, everyone has a copy of it.
Yeah.
Be who you must be. I don't know where you are on your path. I have never stood in your shoes. I see not with your eyes. I know not what your purpose is here in this stage of your evolution. But I feel blessed to know you, as you are not in my life by chance, and you are my teacher, as I hope you learn from me. I pray I show reverence to you. I pray not to judge you. I wish to just let you be. Who you are, who you dream of being. I will just be beside you and watch you grow, and the day will come for sure when we will know why our paths crossed this way. And until then, my friend, be who you must be. And I was also noticing, Alan, did you put that on the board there about professional boundaries?